Right, I sure do love having a drink. God, I sure hope that there isn't a Sarco that will come and grab me in the middle of my monologue of talking about how I'm having a drink in the lake, where there's some Sarcos here, and then they could grab me and pull me into the water, and then I die a horrible, gruesome death. Wow, I ended up getting through that entire thing. I tried to actually extend it. Why? It happened! It happened! No! No, it happened!
Hello. I know I'm a little bit late on this, but hey, we finally got there in the end. Hunya de lazy, not Hunya de crazy, as always. So, Sarco TLC. In general, as my first thoughts to actually put out there, I like the concept. I think they did a good job with the model. I like the animations on some things. I don't like how it sprint swims, just because those legs... What are they doing? It kind of reminds me of the Goniopholis critter, but then just scaled up a bit in terms of its animation. And along with that, the devs have really tried to push really heavily into what they want Sarco to be able to do. Which, when looking at his kit and trying it out for hours, it seems to be that, hey, sit in a river and wait just for something to come along that you can grab, kill, and eat.
You're my friend now. We're having soft tacos later. Oh, I actually can't drop you. There you go.
And, I mean, sure, you could take it onto land, try and fight other semi-aquatics with it, and all that good stuff, but they've really tried to nail down what it specializes in, which is, as I said, wait in a river for an hour for something you can grab and kill.
Unlucky. Oh, look at him. He's looking at me. It's like, how dare you do this? Why you do this?
So I'm going to do what I usually do for TLC drops, go over a bunch of the abilities, my thoughts with those abilities, and some of the uses for them. And then I want to talk about something that's been a problem, and it's been like reoccurring, and getting worse for the past, I don't know, month? But yeah, with all that out of the way, I hope you all enjoy. So Sarco has a few different playstyles to it, along with the abilities and passives to fit that playstyle. But to start off, let's go over how many intrinsic passives that Sarco actually has, which is quite a lot of passives. So first up we have Nictitating Membrane. We've all seen Nictitating Membrane before. Pretty much allows you to see further underwater, and you can also see apparently better during fog and rainstorms. It also allows you to passively track the distance of fish, so in other words you can find your fish buffs a lot easier, or if you need food. And so next up we have Biding Time. While not moving in water, have greatly reduced hunger and thirst depletion, slowly replenishes thirst over time while in water, and aquatic critters, excluding alpha critters, will not attack you unless you are sprint swimming. Now, this is perfect for the general main theme of Sarco, which is to lie in wait and, well, just be super patient. In other words, as long as you sit still, you can stay in one spot, not moving, for ages, and hope pretty much that a alpha critter doesn't spawn and come and eat you. It's pretty much a passive that is tailor-made for that one playstyle of sit in water, in a spot in any sort of trafficked zone, and wait for something to come around so you can grab and eat it. That may sound very uninteractive and boring, and in a way it is. You've got to have like a certain amount of patience for this kind of playstyle of sitting in a river for an hour, hoping that something you can clamp comes along. Otherwise you're just going to be eating critters the entire time. And so next up, Dreadful Presence. All nearby enemies replenish food and water 50% slower within 50 meters. An indicator will display the closest grounded target drinking or eating, affected by Dreadful Presence, does not stack and must be in water to use. Now, this is for those scenarios where you were pretty much sitting on Sarco and you're being super patient, and pretty much something that you could have, actually grabbed is drinking the water near you, or eating, I don't know, a carcass near you. And you didn't see it. It might have been hiding in a bush or anything like that, but with this passive right here, you can pretty much track them down, similar to, like, say, Sarah's carcass tracker. And yes, in this instance right here, I actually messed up my button, and I did want to grab the conch, but yeah, as I said, I messed up, so I just gave her a piece of meat and left. Me. And the last intrinsic passive for Sarco, I don't even need to really bring it up. In other words, it's just called Armored Tail. You take way less damage, from hits to your tail. Simple to understand. Next up, let's actually go over to some of the abilities that Sarco can, actually activate. So, Swerve. A bite attack that rapidly turns to face behind you and change your direction. Deals 35% increased damage if on land. So in other words, it's pretty much just like Sarah and Alberta. It is affected by which way you're facing on which way you'll actually do that spin. But in other words, it's just a quick turning ability that does a bunch of damage. You can use her in water also, but it just does more damage on land. I haven't really used it or gotten any use out of it just because I mainly focus on just sitting in one spot on Sarco in a river. To each their own. And now for the most exciting ability in the game, the Bite. What does it do? Well, it does damage, but it is also a dual nature ability, that whenever you end up actually clamping someone, you end up performing a death roll on whatever you clamp. It's not very good. And that is for 3 reasons. 1, it doesn't do that much damage. 2, you end up actually using quite a lot of stamina to use the actual ability in the first place. And 3 is that the effect of bucking lately has been just ridiculous for anything that either does clamp or pounces stuff. You would be better off pretty much just grabbing something, dropping it in the water, and then just doing normal bites on it. And last up, we have Asphyxiating Snap. Pretty much the same as before, but it's been adjusted a little bit. You can't use it on land anymore. And yeah, it just drains oxygen and stamina from a target. Though it is way more weighted towards draining oxygen than stamina now. So, good for anybody who's actually maybe doing actual water fights. As an example, funny thing about this little fight against this Spino here is that I was actually losing this fight immensely, but now it's pretty much at the same, health level or percentage just because it forgot to actually get some oxygen. And so next up the hide slot, and here we have Muddy Scales. Activate to roll in dirt, covering yourself with mud. Gain up to 50% increased armor based on the amount of mud currently applied. Activate multiple times to apply more mud, and the mud will wash off in water or rain. Now, I'm kind of conflicted with Muddy Scales, and it's the reason that it doesn't really get all the benefits that, say, a Miragaia would get with its Muddy Scales, or, its mud build. And that is, sure, Sarco can get a bunch of armor that is temporary, but then also it doesn't get the bonuses of, say, status healing that Miragaia gets to Bone Break, Bleed, Toxin, Venom, all that good stuff, right? And it kind of just takes away from the reason why would I really want the mud build. It's maybe a little bit too niche, and it's already niche outside of Sarco's, general specialization in the first place. I think it needs a bit more. I think the best use I've gotten out of it is kind of just fighting other Sarcos on land that aren't using mud build when I have mud applied. In those cases, you pretty much just have like a head start in terms of just tankiness and endurability. So you could go mud build, or you could go rugged scales, 25% increased armor, 50% increased health recovery rate while on land, or 30% increased, status healing while in water. It does pretty much, it's like the Miragaia mud build, but not temporary, and a little less armor. The armor is just permanent, whether on land or in water. The health recovery, you just go onto land, you heal up a bunch faster. If you're bleeding a bunch, or you just have a little dip in the water, and then boom, you're healing off your bleed, venom, toxin, poison, who cares? But for those who are more focused on just full water combat, here we have Strong Lungs. 50% increased armor while in water, 50% decreased swim stamina drain, and then also 100% increased oxygen recovery. Pretty much all the armor you wanted from mud build, but just permanently as long as you keep swimming. And so next up, the Sense slot. Caked on, mud effects will persist 24 times longer when wet, and you also gain 15% increased stamina recovery rate while you are covered in mud. It doesn't say up to 15%, so I'm wondering where the drop-off point is right there, or if it scales at all, whether you have like 1% mud on, you gain that 15%, or if it actually scales with how much mud you have on. And I will be fair, Caked on, if you do want to run mud build, it is pretty much necessary, okay? Because look at the drain, it's super slow. It actually allows you to keep mud on if you want to actually play mud Sarco. Even when raining, you can keep mud up just indefinitely, pretty damn easily, even while it's raining. Or if you're going in and out of rivers and traveling the map, of course you have to reapply mud quite a lot, or, you know, more than you would if it was dry, because that just makes sense. But I'll give credit where it's due. If you want to run, you know, mud build on Sarco, using Caked on is actually extremely useful. Unlike, say, if you were playing Tyrannotitan and running Dried Blood, it isn't really going to help you keep that blood on for very long. It's still going to fall off really quick on Tyrannotitan. And so next up we have Patient Lurking, pretty much the same as Spino. Increased, 50% increased oxygen recovery, 50% decreased oxygen drain, and then 25% increased damage while underwater. Pretty much for anybody who really likes aquatic combat, and yeah, it just does what it says on the tin, really. If you like aquatic combat, just run Patient Lurking. You'll have a better chance. So, last up in the Senses slot, we have Strong Jaws, which increases your clamp's death roll damage by 35% and reduces the effectiveness of bucking of anything that you've clamped by 25%. Does what it says on the tin. The only problem is that death roll also just uses way too much stamina. It's pretty much already a death sentence for anything that can't really swim to be clamped by a Sarco anyway, just because it just drops them into the water, and as I've already said, grab, drop, bite,
Unlucky.
and it's dead. If you can clamp it, you can kill it. And so we only have one more slot to actually go through, which is the leg slot. So, Mudslide. While covered in mud, dash forward for at least 4 seconds, depleting mud as you slide. Sliding downhill increases speed, while sliding uphill reduces speed and may, end your slide early. The duration scales with mud amount and ends when you run out. Carrying a dinosaur while sliding will increase your mud depletion rate. Now, that might have sounded like a lot to read and a lot to process, but in other words, you activate Muddy Scales, a bunch of times you build up your mud until you end up getting 100%, and then you activate this ability, and, well,
Anyway,
have fun with it.
look at me go! I don't care what anyone says, I like the mudslide, even if it's not
That's
good.
right, I actually love the mudslide. The problem is, have a look at how much mud this one ability ends up costing you. You put all that investment into this very niche thing to
meaty,
get
but
armor,
yeah.
and then you can spend it, or at least almost half of it, in one ability. Mudslide is pretty much almost like using your mud as an additional stamina bar, as the stamina drain whenever using Mudslide is like next to nothing compared to actually sprinting in the first place. But instead, you end up building up that air quote stamina in mud. All I would like to do, or see in terms of a change for Sarco really, is make the mudslide use less mud. Right now it uses 44% of your mud. I would like that changed down to 30%, maybe 35%. That would be a very nice sweet spot. So mud only really provides armor outside of mudslide, and that's just temporary armor as well. And so having it be so costly for one thing that only provides one actual boost armor, you get where I'm coming from. It only has one other purpose. And so having this one ability to take away that other purpose completely, when there's a bunch of other factors in the game that can also take away that one purpose, such as taking damage, rain, having to travel across a river, you get where I'm coming from. You're removing... why use it in the first place, especially when I've said already that hey, you could just use the other hides like rugged scales or strong lungs, which provide armor permanently. Of course, strong lungs has a condition, but you get where I'm coming from. It kind of just makes mud redundant in the first place, outside of, well, just wanting to have fun with Mudslide. It's more of an aesthetic ability overall. And God, this went on for way longer than I wanted it to. I would just like, the Mudslide to use less mud. So to finish up this tangent, in the other choice in the leg slot, we have Gator Dash, which activate for a quick forward boost of speed, can be used on land or in water, and continuously drain stamina while active. So what the devs have done, they've ended up taking the old Sarco Lunge and the old Sarco Gator Dash and put them both in one ability. If you're in water, you'll end up doing the old Sarco Lunge, and if you're on land, you'll do the old Gator Dash. And even
No.
if you are using a Mud Sarco, I would say this is actually a better choice if you care about, I don't know, being optimal over Mudslide. You'll use more stamina, but you'll keep that vital resource of mud, in which your character is completely built around in this moment. So, moving away from the abilities on Sarco into its identity. Now, Sarco has always been known as that thing you want to be careful of if you're ever near the water and you're getting a drink. And for this particular playstyle, the devs have knocked it out of the park. It pretty much has every tool perfect for this one playstyle that is dangerous to anything that can be grabbed. You can wait, you can sit, you can grab, you can kill, and, you just stay alive. It's great sustain, and it's personally my type of playstyle for Sarco. And so, for me, it's kind of perfect in that aspect. But, from what I've heard from other people, because personally I'm not a very active player with Sarco, I just sit there listening to music for ages and waiting for something to grab until I see like a notification saying, "Oh yeah, grab time." Aquatic combat is actually my least favorite form of combat in the game. It's pretty much who can control the admin camera movement the best, right? That's kind of how I see it. And so out of my limited amount of, aquatic combat with Sarco after its TLC, it kind of just feels like it does the worst out of all of the semi-aquatics. It has the lowest damage, the lowest speed mostly, it has the lowest durability, and yeah, it just struggles against all of them. They all have big bursty attacks that they can choose at any time. Whereas Sarco is kind of only just left with one option, which is just bite, and everybody has tried using the bite in a fight, and the cooldown is just rough, right? But here's one thing that I can put into theory, in where I think Sarco would excel over everything, and that is in the ocean. So when Sarco is fully built for aquatic combat, it still doesn't have the best speed, damage, or endurance. But it does have the best stamina and the best oxygen in the game. So I want you all to imagine this scenario. You're in the ocean, this dotted line is the ocean, surface, and you are a Sarco swimming out to sea being followed by a Spino. And so you can't get away from this Spino. It's just going to catch you. It's faster than you. It's also fully built for, aquatic combat. And so how do you get away from it? Or how do you beat it even? Well, you keep just going out into the ocean, and you try to go deeper and deeper, and you start hitting it with oxygen bites, and you're stealing oxygen away from it, and all of a sudden, if it's not paying attention, it ends up just drowning on the bottom of the floor, while you just keep trying to evade, and you keep trying to hit it with those oxygen bites. Or, on the other hand, it also gives you a chance to actually get away from the Spino. Because, hey, it's gonna, if it keeps getting hit by oxygen bites, it's gonna have to surface. It's a lot of oxygen that the oxygen bite actually takes away. But that is at least a good chance for you to actually try and get away from the threat, right? And this pretty much works on everything except for other Sarcos, who can pretty much do the same to you. Of course, this is all theory because no one ever goes into the ocean, but it feels like Sarco, you kind of gotta have a plan in order to pull stuff off with it. But Of course, I am no descendant of the great crocodile god Sobek, as some people play like. Damn. Some people are just really good at semi-aquatics. I don't know how they do it. The main thing that really annoys me with semi-aquatic combat is when my camera ends up coming out of the water and I lose all vision of who I'm fighting. Oh well. Other than that, though, has anybody noticed how bad the servers have gotten with people teleporting around and
like that.
instantly spinning around, or maybe cancelling out the sounds
Also,
on their attacks? Or perhaps hitting you from 2 miles away, or they bite the tip of your tail and then all of a sudden they're doing full body damage. It's kind of made it really, really unfun. It's almost like before, basically when the game first released on console, it's been like a couple of times. Yeah, I don't know what else to say, except for the past couple of weeks has been pretty damn rough in terms of playing, and then, you can't really anticipate what's going to happen when someone teleports straight to you, or you can't really judge distance when they're hitting you from 2 miles away and then hitting still full body damage. It almost makes you wish that, I don't know, you could tell the future, in which then you'd have better uses than, playing on a funny dinosaur game or doing well on a funny dinosaur game. I don't know, if you could tell the future, you'd go and win the lottery, right? But no. Why did I even get onto that tangent? Anyway, yeah, all I can say is just over like the past couple of weeks, the servers have just gotten bad. They have gotten pretty damn bad on official servers. I don't know if this has anything to do with the whole DDoS protection thing that Alderaan have had to do lately. And the fact that they've had to do that in the first place is incredibly sad. It is incredibly sad. I just don't understand why someone would go through the effort of DDoSing servers because they're upset about something. It's like, find something better to do with your time. Maybe stop playing the game if you're that upset at the game. Yeah, this was just a random tangent and ramble that I went on about, but it's for good reason. It's because it's kind of just affecting everybody, right? Because it's always the same case, that it's always over something super petty that someone ends up trying to make everybody in the game suffer in order for, I don't know, the game to suffer overall. And it's like, it's super petty. It's always super petty.
So do you lot need a trophy?
Just why? You could find way better uses for your time than trying to make other people miserable. And so here we are at the end. Now, I know that I didn't really have any real gameplay to show here other than, what I used as examples. But honestly, when like 90% of my time is just spent sitting in one spot, and then, I get 30 seconds of interaction with anything. Yeah, it doesn't make for the most entertaining kind of video, you know what I mean? Because, trust me, there was times where I was sitting in one spot for like, literally an hour. And I maybe saw like 2 things. And those things I couldn't even grab, right? Usually it's like another Tyrannotitan, or is like a Spino, or another Sarco. And it's usually the case that, I didn't really want to do that. I'm not really set up for that, so I just, didn't fight them. Or at the very least, those fights that did happen, they weren't really satisfying since they didn't even come to a conclusion, since one side ended up running away. So overall, I could say I like the Sarco. I like Sarco for the main focus that they pushed it towards. Just because it suits me. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, that playstyle in particular. Some people, well, most people actually prefer a more active role. And, can't knock them for that. For me, it just works. It just works. Although it's just very, very uninteractive, which is fine by me. But I think the problem that Sarco has is that that's pretty much the only real playstyle that it excels in. All the other playstyles, you could just pick another semi-aquatic and just do it better. Or just be bullied by all of the other semi-aquatics. In which, especially with the map traffic issue, you could spend 2 hours in a river and not see anybody. Or you could go to Grand Plains and then spot everybody there. So it's a multi-layered issue. But anyway, let me know your thoughts on the Sarco TLC. And yeah, with all that out of the way, I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all have a lovely day. Bye.